developing drugs and developing care systems for patients with orphan diseases. It's a relatively new term, but all doctors and everyone in the medical area knows this term. We know the cystic fibrosis, such diseases like cystic fibrosis and spinal muscle atrophy, SMA. These diseases are called orphan diseases or rare diseases, meaning that the prevalence is 1 case per 10,000 people. But in total, we have around 7,000 of orphan diseases. And looking at this list, we can see why it is one of the biggest problems of today's healthcare. Well, if we don't talk about COVID, of course. Very simple calculation tells us that in pediatric service, in pediatric departments, more than 50% of beds are occupied by kids with orphan diseases. And that's just a rough calculation. Or actually, that percentage could have been higher. And these diseases pose a big challenge for the healthcare system, both from the organizational and financial perspective. But all of us who work in the healthcare area, whose work is about treating patients with orphan diseases, we all know that in recent years there was a revolution in the means which are being used to treat these patients, and that's what we are going to talk about today. Our panelists, we have excellent panelists here today, and I hope that we will be able to develop some valuable recommendations regarding caring after the patients with orphan diseases. Elena Kartasheva, Takeda, Russia, President. Natalia Kolerova, Novartis, Russia, President. Viktor Fisenko, First Deputy of the Healthcare Minister. Dmitry Khubezov, State Duma Deputy and the Head of Healthcare Committee in State Duma. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that we will have a very interesting discussion today. And I would like to give the floor to the minister, to the person who represents the healthcare ministry. And First Deputy of Minister of Healthcare Minister. Mr. Fisenko, please tell us about the current state of things in this area. What do we have in terms of the means to care about these patients? Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Sergey. And an answer to such question will normally be along the lines of what has already been done in this area and what is planned to be done. And you are completely correct. Several years ago, the orphan diseases or rare diseases have become the key topic in these discussions. But talking about caring about patients with these diseases, I think we should split this subject into two aspects: diagnosing these diseases and treating these diseases. Starting from 1990s, doctors started to diagnose these diseases. In 2006, we implemented the system which helped screen babies for these diseases. Now we are screening them for at least 5 diseases. And thanks to this screening system, we managed to save thousands of lives, because timely diagnosis of this disease is extremely important, and it literally can save life of people. And recently, decision was made to expand the list of diseases for which we screen babies up to 36 diseases. In the West, there are up to 40 diseases, and we are coming close to the Western standard. And these diseases relate to the process of metabolism and relate to manifestations of SMA at early stages. So we have already allocated funding for this, funding to buy equipment and funding to train doctors, and we are planning to launch this program shortly, and we will be screening babies for at least 36 orphan diseases. And in provision of drugs to these patients is based on decree of the government that was issued in 1990s, and before regional authorities were responsible for ensuring availability of drugs. In 1998, we designated 7 nosologies which were associated with particularly high costs of treatment. Now the scope of that program was expanded to cover 14 nosologies, and last year another revolution happened there. The President of the Russian Federation instructed us to set up the organization called the Round of Good, the Round of Kindness, and this is an organization which is taking care and providing help to kids with these diseases, and that help also includes purchasing of drugs, of foreign-made drugs, which are not easily available in the Russian Federation. More than 200,000 kids have already received help under the lines of this program. And this assistance, more than 10,000 kids have already received assistance as part of this program, and this assistance has not been covered by the medical insurance. The funding for this program amounted to 60 billion rubles already, and we are tailoring legal framework to the we are improving the legal framework that we have in place to cover what this organization is doing. These improvements will also enable our authorities to buy foreign-produced drugs before they become officially available here in Russia. And we have also activated efforts focusing on making a larger number of drugs available here in Russia. We have actually done a lot in order to ensure certification for a number of drugs, like SMA, for example, is a well-known disease, and there are at least 3 drugs which can help you with SMA. Several years ago, it was a big problem indeed, but now we have around 1,000 of kids who are diagnosed with SMA, and they are getting necessary treatment and medication. In some cases, the cost per pack of these drugs can be as high as 100 million rubles. So orphan diseases, for the first time, were mentioned in the federal law number 323, and for 3 years ago, we achieved a breakthrough in terms of making more drugs available here in the market, more drugs available through the standard procurement system. We have extended the list of nosologies for which we screen babies. We have created this Round of Kindness, the organization that is providing medical assistance and help to kids diagnosed with these diseases. And in terms of the plans we have for the future, we are going to carry on adapting this Round of Kindness, adapting the efforts of the Round of Kindness to the needs of our patients. I have already mentioned that we have expanded the list of nosologies for which we screen babies. And I think we need to we have to look at the data here. We need to look at numbers, because numbers really help us see what is happening here. It helps us provide better care after our patients. It helps us avoid more severe cases of these diseases. And we all have the task which is set by the president. We need to ensure high life expectancy. I think you have touched upon three topics which we would discuss today. First and foremost, this is availability of drugs. Our patients are expecting the supply of drugs, and our doctors are expecting it as well. Then early diagnostics, because the earlier you diagnose a patient with this disease, then the easier it is to treat this. Now I'd like to ask the question to representatives of those companies who manufacture these very valuable drugs. So, Elena Kartasheva, Takeda is one of the largest manufacturers of drugs to treat orphan diseases. So thank you very much for giving me the floor here, and I would like to support what the first Deputy Healthcare Minister said. So orphan diseases have indeed become part of our life recently, and only recently we discovered this word combination as like orphan diseases. So the round of kindness was a breakthrough. It was a revolution. Yes, it ensured access to medical assistance to a great number of patients, young patients, and the government managed to launch it really quickly. And this project is gaining traction. Also, the President has asked us to explore ways to develop the system for making drugs available for these kids which grow up. I'm a member of the expert council of the round of kindness, and I keep asking the question, what is going to happen with those kids? They are getting these drugs under this governmental supply line until they are 18. After they are 18, they are no longer eligible for this. No, there should be treatment continuity, and we need to establish that. So the care, there is the system that ensures care after these patients, and there are many components in this system. There is the manufacturing company which makes these drugs. There is also a doctor who diagnoses this patient with this orphan disease. And SMA is not the only orphan disease which is there. There are many of this kind. Sometimes they are symptomless, and in a lot of cases they are uncovered by doctors of other specializations, by neurologists, by cardiologists, because they manifest themselves in a particular way. And in some cases, this orphan odyssey or diagnosing odyssey may take a really long time. So neurologists focus on their aspects, cardiologists focus on their own aspects, and it may take quite a long time to diagnose an orphan disease. But in fairness, that relates to patients who does not have this well-manifested disease. But after the patient was diagnosed with it, then there is another question. This treatment is extremely costly, and not just for Russia. Every government calculates its budget, and every government knows how much money it has to treat these patients. But so I think we have a lot to do here. We have a lot to do here, and I would mention two things, two problems here.
And you need to be cautious, and also we need time to educate doctors with different professional profiles who have genetics, but, well, a doctor focused on genetics, but you need to have a patient with orphan disease. When you have a diagnosis, when we talk about Fabry diseases, it's not a situation that is that simple. Sometimes it takes a number of years when you need to see a number of specialists before you get the correct diagnosis. And then you are qualified for treatment. And that's the point. You need to emphasize and pay more attention on. Everyone has the information, and everyone understands that a patient cannot be given a treatment straight away, and that has to do with funding. It can take half a year, and very often regions, in terms of budget, cannot cover the treatment of the patient, and the patient is sent to the federal center to verify the diagnosis once again. And that's a puzzle for me. I believe that we need to share more possibilities with doctors locally, not to prove the diagnosis at the federal center. Otherwise, you have a genetician. Then a patient could qualify for the federal treatment, and here the period for therapy is getting longer, and we know it well, because quite often we are asked for support to patients before they get funding, and that funding can last up to 6 months. How to reduce the period? What can we do? It's a reason for thirds, and we also need to avoid situations when you need to get like a judgment from court. We need to avoid this. Here, I would like to stop. Talking about what we need to improve, given the periods for improvement, it's normal. You don't have any ideal situations. Thank you. And as for providing help to children, you don't need any judgment from court. And I was amazed. There is an achondroplasia treatment medicine that allows children to grow 2.5 centimeters per year, and the Foundation of the Good make the decision quite quickly, the circle of the good. And, well, there is a problem for the adults, and also for providing medications listed on that 24 list. We have 17 nosologies with costly diseases like Fabry disease and a number of others. We would like to become recognized at the federal level to get to the VZN list of 14 pharmaceutical products in all the regions for patients not to depend on whether the region is subsidized. Well, I would agree. Getting Fabry disease on the federal level is relevant for many years. Now, I would like to ask Natalia Kolerova from Novartis, pharmaceutical company, which is ahead of everyone in development. Elena, I believe you will not be offended. Novartis is a big developer of the first therapy preparations for SMA, and patients get the products and are treated. So what's your proposal? What's your vision? If you allow me, I would like to begin by thanking you, because for more than a year we had the first meeting with Mr. Victor on genetic and cell therapy for SMA in the Ministry of Health. And in 2021, despite all challenges we have in our healthcare system with COVID and other challenges, we supplied the product for 60 children. 60 children is a huge number, even compared to what's going on in Europe. And the Russian Federation could demonstrate being open to innovations and readiness for the fundamental positions which are stated in our Constitution. This is also a result of a great professional dialogue between the regulator, the manufacturer, the suppliers, for those involved in the diagnostics, and charity foundations were involved, and pioneers from the circle of good, enthusiastic people that took that challenging role. And we see that everything is possible if you are really willing to achieve your goal. And as our company is one of the leading producers and developers of innovative solutions, integrating new classes showed the need to change many regulatory aspects to solve practical problems, like the pack in Russian language for sets that are individualized, labeling. So thanks to God we could resolve the problems in our dialogue, but it's clear that every product which is not standard, which cannot be described in terms of Federal Law 63 on medications, it has a challenging track, and I'd like to thank the Ministry of Healthcare and all regulatory agencies of the Russian Federation that were involved in the discussions, because outside of the dialogue, without being ready to treat the needs of patients, it would not have been possible. And we account for our proposals to change the legal framework and the standards to optimize the technologies existing, making them routine for the pharma industry. They are necessary, and we have the discussions, the round tables. We keep communicating to the regulators, and we hope that in one point of time it is fixed in the legal context. And we have a positive background with nosologies which are costly, on how you can provide treatment for patients. We have a unique program, the initiative by our president, the Circle of the Good for Children. So I hope time and hour have arrived for us to unite and integrate it all for the Minister of the Health Care to identify criteria for providing all patients with rare diseases, and we have a large portfolio for cancer treatment and the federal program for cancer treatment. So the priorities were set at the level of the government. The clear KPIs on implementations, and have a look. In just 3 years, what were the results? The quality of life and the longevity of cancer patients increased. We used different approaches for assessment of technologies. So, Natalia, so would you like to integrate this program for orphan patients? So maybe we can use the Circle of the Good Foundation, but you need a systemic approach and understanding. Yeah, it would be helpful, right? Because as we all understand, the treatment is very, very expensive. And the correct, the well-reasoned assessment based on big data, on observation of the patients would help the government to invest funds reasonably in treatment of such diseases. And also for the cancer treatment program showed the opportunities and the barriers. And we started to work together on them, on the limits. When you have a big problem, high mortality from cancer diseases, you don't know how to split it. But when you have the task set and when you start resolving it, you have professionals and extra investments coming not from just big pharma, but also from private healthcare center. And it's important, and it changes the approach to treatment of such diseases. Okay, well, let's meet together, and as a freelancer, I would submit this proposal to the Minister of Healthcare, a proposal on a strategic document on how we could make this help to orphan disease patients systemic. Yes. I would propose what's special about those diseases. So they are given to a person, and many diseases, they depend on the lifestyle, on being not well reasoned to our capital. But quite often there is something goes wrong on the genetic level when the person is born. And as a human society, we can only help such people becoming better as a country, as a society. Thank you. Now, I would like to give the floor to Dmitry Khubezov. And I would like to say that the Federal Assembly's merits in terms of orphan patients is great. The role of Lady Valentina Matvienko, and now you are head of the State Duma's Committee on Healthcare, and it was intentionally that I wanted you to hear the Ministry of Healthcare and the businesses, and myself as a doctor focused on orphan disease. How would you estimate the situation, what has been done, and what are the plans of the State Duma? Thank you, Sergey. Dear friends, a lot has been done, and I need to keep the pace taken by my predecessors. And of course, we would like to accelerate the state of things, and it's a big responsibility. Okay, so we did all we wanted: neonatal screening for 36 nosologists, the program for identification and concern about orphan diseases, and if we would like to talk about cancer treatment, so you have like a cancer concern, and a local physician gets an extra payment if a disease is identified. So as for orphan disease, I hope that you have a program which will be developed after our meeting on orphan diseases. So maybe we could support our local physicians, and a doctor would get bonuses for cancer and rare diseases identified. But the responsibility is that it started to work. We have the first area of screening, the first aid level of identifying diseases in population, and we need to be ready financially on the side of finance and on the side of organization. And as legislators, the problems have been long discussed. Federalization of nosologies cases when people need to go to the court to be eligible for different pharma products in the regions. Yes, so if the program is fully implemented, it would be a big burden for the budget. But we shouldn't tell between the regions. Our constitution guarantees the same amount of healthcare aid. Well, you don't need that many funds to identify comparatively 24 nosologies. And the very term innovative medication, high-tech medication, it's our role. On the side of the legislation, we need to define the criteria for the preparation, for the purchase. Many of them are produced by a single pharma company. Risk and cost sharing should be in the law. We shouldn't forget about our industry. We have Pharma 2030 program. Of course, we cannot produce everything, but we have a program. And when a person is growing older, you have that gap in the law, and it's very good that shortly it will be resolved, and all problems, as stated here, let's make us concerned as legislators. So we were happy to get involved earlier, and the new committee, in terms of orphan diseases, I believe it's professional. So we will not let you down. Thank you. Thank you. We are really thankful and grateful to the State Duma and the Council of the Federation for the continuous support. And together with the Ministry of Healthcare, I believe that we can resolve slight problems on orphan diseases. I would like to say a couple of words on the early diagnostics. And as mentioned by Olga and Natalia, we have screening for 36 diseases, and the pilot project for SMA, the first immunity shortage, will start. It will be done for 200,000 newborn children, and it's supported by Novartis. And the agreement was signed at the Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. Natalia, your opinion on the early diagnostics? Of course, it's very, very important, because the sooner you get the diagnosis, the more are the chances for a child to get the modifying therapy, if we talk about SMA, a chance for life which would be not that much different from the life of his peers. As for the orphan diseases, they are diseases that dramatically compromise the quality of life, and quite often patients die at an early age, and so that's why it's so very much important before clinical syndromes reveal in a patient. And that concern, that caution should be systemic and automated, and that's a huge part of job. Sergey, it's up to you, specialists, because it's not enough to spread screening from 5 to 36 diseases. But there is a huge job on educating the doctors, logistics.
So you need to at least collect all the data and send it to the Institute of Genetical Research. It's not rocket science, but still something that needs to be done. Yes, that was Elena's point. In the regions, these practices need to be set up. And we have several federal centers which are working with this. And we are just making first steps here. But we'd like to be in a situation when we have these laboratories in every federal region. So these labs should be performing these analyses so that the diagnosis could be obtained quickly. And I think in the ideal situation, these orphan disease treatment programs should imply that the state would guarantee treatment to all patients diagnosed with this. This help will be provided at the federal level, but it will be insured locally. So patients will be getting this assistance at their place of their residence. So you have to do a lot of organizational work, and we are ready to provide you with each and every assistance. And as strange as it may seem, Russia is ahead of all other countries which are trying to put this care on a systemic basis. And we're not going to confine our efforts just to the list of 36 nosologists. We have several pilots that we are doing in the area of lysosome diseases and many others. So in these cases, the earlier you are diagnosed with this disease, the higher is your chance to get treated. Victor, I would like to give the floor to you to wrap it up. Yes, thank you very much, dear Victor. And I was writing things down whilst our speakers were making their statements. And actually, we have never said that we're going to stop at to limit the list of diagnosed nosologists to 36 diseases. You're completely right. The issue of treatment continuity needs to be addressed. So all patients who become above 18 years old should also continue getting help, and age should not be the qualification criteria here. So we keep hearing about this desire to federalize procurement process for providing these drugs. But the point is that our local authorities, our governor's offices, they have a lot of authority. And on the one hand, I understand that it's better to have this done on a centralized level, and it's better to finance it from one source. But when remember, when we set up this Circle of Kindness organization, we did it under one condition. We will provide this assistance at the federal level, but the regions should not reduce the amount of funding for these diseases which they provide locally. And that's an important point. And you also You also made the right point when you mentioned that we have patients who were diagnosed with this disease by local doctors. Then they come to the federal center and they have to undergo through the same diagnostics process. And I think we should refine this system so you don't have to confirm this diagnosis at every stage that you go through. One diagnose should be enough. And Natalia was right in mentioning the dialogue that we had for at least a year. And we do have certain things in our regulatory framework that need to be rectified, and we are in dialogue with drug manufacturers. We have laws and governmental directives on the basis of which we interact with drug manufacturers. Because when it comes to orphan diseases and drugs that are required for diagnosis, the problem with them is that there are very few patients, and the number of these patients is not enough to have a representative data set on the basis of which you can have this drug certified. From the 1st of March this year, we will authorize the in vitro diagnosis of these diseases. And so it will be allowed. And in conclusion, I would like to say that these 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic have taught us to make decisions quickly and in good coordination with each other, because we are in a lot better contact with drug manufacturers, regulators, decision makers, and lawmakers. And I would like to thank State Duma and the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation for acting swiftly on these issues, because previously just the discussion of these things took several years. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Victor. Indeed, a lot has already been done, and we know that there is a lot more to do ahead of us. And I like the idea provided by Ms. Kartasheva that there should be an aligned strategy in this area, and we should remain focused on our newborn babies screening practices. And we have to embrace AI solutions and other tech solutions which could help us. This is the concept that we are working on in the area of genetical research. We try to define what we want to get out of using these tech products. And there are many things which we still don't know about orphan diseases. This is why in a lot of cases they may be misdiagnosed. There is a need for better drugs. And orphan diseases is a very important topic. It relates directly to the level of healthcare in a state. It has enormous economic and social implications, and a lot has yet to be done here. I would like to thank all our participants for a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.